In the words of the late George Carlin, BS is the glue that binds us together as a nation. Here comes a ton of it. It's time for BSing with Big Nate.
Welcome into this installment of BSing with Big Nate. I'm Big Nate. We've got a pandemic going on, not a whole hell of a lot else going on, so I decided we would go ahead and create this video podcast, discuss what's not going on in the world, but what is going on in the world. Musicians, key figures, notable people, and I'm joined by one such notable person, Mr. Tim Donnelly. You know him from The Tim Donnelly Show, also former host of the Bear Tailgate Show, now executive producer at The Nick Cattle Show on WVSP. Tim, how you doing?
I'm doing well. That was a fantastic intro. I don't know how notable I am, but I appreciate it.
I build – it's BSing. I'm just building you up, buddy.
I should have known. BSing. In that case, I'm an astronaut/pirate. Hey,
I will not refute that. I've got no evidence. Can't get close enough to debate that with you. But what have you been up to since the entire sports world has kind of been put on hold?
I think I'm doing what a lot of sports radio personalities are doing, which is working 3 times as hard to come up with the same amount of content because – there really isn't any content. So it's trying to look at 6 different ways at the little nuggets of information that we do have and trying to make sports conversation out of it.
That's exciting. That's actually why I brought you here. So you hosted the Tim Donnelly Show, and one of the features you ran was Top Tuesdays, where you would make lists, top 3 at 3, top 4 at 4, top 5 at 5. And I always floated the idea, because we also hosted the Tim Donnelly Show Presents Movie Night, a podcast about movies, and I thought the perfect segue would be ranking sports movies. And you rank sports movies when there were no sports. Well, the time has come, Tim. The time has come. We're going to do top 5 sports movies.
You know how, when it's a little kid, you keep pushing something off. They, want to go to the carnival, and you're like, when pigs fly, or okay, when it snows in April, and then eventually it snows in April, and you're like, all right, I guess we got to do it. I've been pushing off the sports movie conversation, saying we'll do it when there's no sports. We'll do it when there's no sports. This is like the ultimate combination of no sports. So,
I would say you could never have predicted it, but it seems like you kind of did.
I guess I backed into it. I don't want to take credit saying I predicted any of this.
All right, that's fair. We'll go ahead and we're going to start. I don't have any of the doodads with me. We're very lo-fi here at BSing with Big Nate on account of all of my equipment's at the station and not allowed there so very much. So we'll go ahead. I want to get your number 5 pick before we get mine. We're going to make you go first.
All right, number 5. Am I explaining this, or am I just going for it?
No, you're going to explain it.
Okay. This one holds a near and dear place to my heart because at one point in time, I was a white guy who could dunk, and I've heard this probably more on a basketball court than anything. White Men Can't Jump. Billy Hoyle, Sidney Dean, which is obviously Woody Harrelson and Wesley Snipes. This movie controls the feel of pickup basketball probably better than any other movie. And as you know, I say it all the time. You can learn everything about a person by how they play pickup basketball when you're calling your own fouls. So give me White Man Can't Jump as a nice appetizer to this meal and put it as number 5.
All right. I can respect that choice. I also love White Men Can't Jump. Did not make my list. Actually, I'm going through it, and basketball is the sport that really got neglected, but, well, you'll see what happens when we let's see. My actual top 2 choices, really my top 4 are right in my wheelhouse, but we'll start with number 5. I actually went to football for this one. I think it's one of the best sports movies of all time. I don't think it gets enough love, and we're going to have to go with Varsity Blues. Because it's got your traditional late 90s, early 2000s teen drama. There's a lot of comedy there, and ultimately it's a really compelling story. And Paul Walker, man, the late Paul Walker, one hell of an actor. You've got, of course, Moxley not wanting his father's life, and then Billy Bob.
I don't want your life. all-time classic.
So that has to be the best clock-stopping maneuver I've ever seen. Total gimmick, hitting the mascot in the head with the football is probably what sealed it in at number 5 and maybe not at like number 7.
All right. I like it. You're off to a good start. That's not in my top, but I could see it. It was a honorable mention. We'll give it an honorable mention. My number 4. I'm going into your wheelhouse. You mentioned your wheelhouse. I'm going into my wheelhouse. And it's again nostalgic, brings me back to a very specific point in my life. Mighty Ducks. D1, the first one. Mighty Ducks. Gordon Bombay, terrible person, terrible coach. Charlie, great kid. The real move was when they brought over Banksy and got him, cake eater, if you will, because he was the best player in the league. If I had to guess, he's probably somewhere in the NHL, just rounding out a Hall of Fame career right now.
You there?
Yeah. Did I drop?
I lost you at the real move.
Oh, the real move was bringing in Banksy, right? From the Hawks, he was the best player in the league. They brought him over to the Ducks. If I had to guess, he's probably just finishing up an NHL career with, I don't know, something like 700 career goals right about now, in the real world where the movie continues.
Oh, yeah. And then, surely they're talking about when is he going to retire? When's that career going to end? I can see that. I can respect that. Did you see Disney's doing what they do with all of their properties and discussing a reboot with, what's her name? She was in Gilmore Girls. I believe she's
I'm very nervous. It's Lauren Graham, right? I'm very nervous.
Yeah.
I'm going to need 2 or 3 people I trust to tell me that is worth watching before I watch it, because I don't like messing with like childhood classics. I still haven't seen the second Dumb and Dumber. I still haven't seen the second Anchorman. I still haven't seen the second Zoolander. I am very much precious with watching sequels.
Yeah, I'm not sure that a reboot is something that's necessary, particularly considering Disney doesn't even own or have any affiliation as so much with the actual hockey team. I would rather see them hand those rights over to the team so that the team could do what they want, use the licensing for merchandising, and because right now they have to get special permission, money's going to Disney, and I'm sure attacking the evil empire here is going to do wonders. But that brings me to my number 4 choice.
You're a big Ducks fan.
Yeah, actually, if you look in the background, there's one.
That's funny.
Cool mask. They used to hand those out. It's signed by somebody. I got it from some auction site online, and I couldn't remember who signed it. It was like some crew member, the guy who washes their jack straps or something.
I just had to check behind me to see if I had anything up, but it's nothing serious.
So number 4 for me, we're gonna go to The Diamond. We're gonna go to a movie. It's weird that you and I put similar number 4s, but The Sandlot. Easily one of the stories kid, because it's not, they throw in a lot of baseball history. It's very baseball centric, but ultimately it's kind of like the Goonies with a baseball field. And I think that makes that one of the all-time, if you're trying to get your kid into sports movies, throw The Sandlot on, throw the Mighty Ducks on, and that's a good way to segue him into sports, I think.
It's becoming more like extinct because kids just don't go outside and play like that anymore. They don't do the whole like be home when the street lights turn on. They just don't do it anymore. It's a longing for a different era.
Very much so. So your number 3 choice.
I was tempted to do an impression here, but I'm gonna spare you. Give me Rocky. Sylvester Stallone, 1976, won all the Oscars. Adrian, Apollo Creed, spawned a franchise that's still going on today with the Creed sequels. It changed movies forever. Give me Rocky all day, every day.
Now, I have to ask with Rocky, because just knowing you and how much you love parts of that franchise, are there any that you would get rid of and maybe have not exist? Do you think that any of the movies tarnish the Rocky legacy?
If I were curating the Rocky franchise, 1 stays, 2 stays, 3 stays, 4 stays. All classics, right? I'm not getting rid of anything with Apollo Creed, nothing with Clubber Lang, which is 3, nothing with Ivan Drago, which is 4. 5 with Tommy Gunn, where they're fighting in the streets, sucks. Get it out of there. Rocky Balboa, the one that came out in 06, sucks. Get it out of there. So if I were curating the Rocky franchise, it would go 1, 2, 3, 4, Creed 1, Creed 2, and that would be all I need to see.
I think that tells the most. If I were gonna suggest to anyone, I like to do that with TV series and the like. Is you can just skip the first season. You don't need to see it. It's all filler material. They would just sell to the network. I feel like with 5 and 6, they were kind of just trying to recapture some lightning that wasn't there, and they weren't ready for it yet until Creed. So I'm right there with you on that one. My number. This is 3. My number 3. Shoot, should have picked a longer list. But my number 3 is also baseball, and it deals with a well-beloved Canadian actor playing a gambler who becomes a baseball coach for some inner-city youth. It's like Bad News Bears in reverse. Hardball.
Interesting. Hardball's this high for you.
I love Hardball. It's a hard watch. It's not one that I can like... because of everything with G Baby. It's not one that I can sit down and, I'm going to watch Hardball this weekend, but it's definitely one that has left a lasting impact on me in sports cinema.
It is very much a movie like that. I remember I saw it in theaters when it was in its first run. I remember who I was seeing it with. It was for my buddy Ford Palmer's birthday party. I remember who I was sitting next to because it's like an emotional thing, right? Where G Baby and I mean everything that happens with Jamal and which, by the way, is speaking connection to what we were just talking about. Jamal is Michael B. Jordan, who is Creed in the Creed franchise years later. And yeah, it's Keanu. It's Hawkins, right? The guy that plays Tiki. Yep. A lot of interesting bits there. A lot of things. Have you watched it within the last 10 years?
Yeah.
I see.
Yeah, that movie's 19 years old. It top box office the weekend of September 11th. I don't know if you knew that.
That makes sense because I would have put it in the era of which I remember seeing it. But I watched it as a kid, like I said, at my buddy's birthday party, right? Like sleepover in a movie. And then I didn't watch it again for probably 10 or 15 years, and I watched it again. There's so much going on in that movie that I did not understand. Whether it was like the gambling stuff and how he was into bookies and how the guy at the bar was a bookie and how the barber was a bookie. I thought he just got in with the wrong people on like the wrong side of the tracks. I didn't catch any of that. The fact that his buddy, whoever was giving him the money, had to do the community service, like it was very Mighty Ducks. There was just so much that I didn't catch as a kid. As a kid, I was just like, I felt like I was watching kids my age play baseball on like the wrong side of Chicago. But then as an adult, you realize like Keanu Reeves has this whole storyline. He's trying to get with Diane Lane, who's the teacher. There's like so much else going on that I didn't catch.
See, that one's interesting. I probably saw it for the first time within the last 10 years. So I didn't see it when I was a kid. I came in with that understanding that this guy's got some shady stuff going on in his life. So I had that full understanding. I can't imagine actually sitting through that. Because you're in what, 11?
As a kid, he's like the coolest coach ever, right? Because he takes him to pizza, takes him to see Sammy Sosa, gives a good speech at the end about G Baby. He's just like this cool guy. When you look at it as an adult, you're like, oh, he is not responsible enough to be like the authority figure for like 12, 11-year-olds every Tuesday and Thursday and games on Saturday. But it worked out. Shout out to Keanu Reeves. Who would have guessed that? Who would have guessed that guy's going to be like John Wick and one of the biggest movie stars on the planet?
No kidding. So
was that pre-Matrix?
It would have been around the same time that Matrix 1 came out in 99.
And this was what, like,
and like the sequels were like 03 or 04, and then
so he just like took a break from being like the biggest movie star on the planet to do Hardball.
I kind of think Keanu just does what he wants. They're working on a new Bill and Ted. Nobody asked for it, but it's happening. Keanu doesn't.
I don't hate that move. But yeah, Hardball is an absolute classic. What are we at? My number 2?
Yep.
All right, my number 2. This list took some planning. I'm gonna have to get. Can I have some time to give some honorable mentions when all this is done?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, good. I'm gonna roll with Moneyball, and here's why. It's written by Aaron Sorkin, who's my all-time favorite television, movie, anything screenwriter. Obviously, West Wing, Few Good Men, Social Network, Sports Night, Newsroom, all that kind of stuff. He's a legend. Brad Pitt, I think, gives one of his best performances. Jonah Hill got nominated for a freaking Oscar, even though he's the tubby kid from Superbad, right? And this was before Wolf of Wall Street. This is when he was like establishing himself as like a legit actor. True story. I remember the story, which is always cool for me. Like, I like true stories when they're set in like 1920, but it's like, it's new to me. But I remember this Oakland A's team. I remember Scott Hatteberg and all those guys. So it was really fun for me. I thought the pacing was great. I thought the dialogue was great. I thought the baseball was great. I thought the acting by the baseball players was great. The guy that plays David Justice looks just like David Justice, which I think is really cool. And me and my dad quote it all the time. So, you know, it's got that nostalgic factor as well. Baseball movie that you talk about with your dad is like awesome.
That one's fascinating to me. You brought something up there about actually remembering what happened. That's really weird. And I know in my brain, I know that's going to happen more and more the older I get. And it's a very concerning thing is like when they're making stuff like, I remember when the movie for Flight 93 came out and it's like, okay, this is starting to be something. And
well, it's like looking at sports movies. One of the ones that brought up, and it's a movie I love, is Brian's Song, which is about Brian Piccolo. And I remember watching that and being a young kid and not really grasping that like Gale Sayers is real and Brian Piccolo is real. Just thinking this is like the saddest story in the history of the world. And, you know, they were just characters to me. I can't imagine what that movie would do to me if I remembered watching like Gale Sayers and Brian Piccolo play for the Bears. And that's going to start happening. Like you said, Flight 93 is perfect. It's like, oh gosh, I remember what I was doing that day. And this is the story of that. It's freaking heavy, man.
Well, then like Captain Phillips, how fast did they get that movie out? That was like within 2 years of it happening.
Or any movie that Mark Wahlberg and Peter Berg have made in the last, They did Patriots Day about the Boston Marathon bombing. They did the explosion of the BP oil spill. Remember how, I forget, Deepwater Horizon. Like are things that happened, you know, within the last 10 years. They already got major motion pictures that have been out for a while. So, yeah, I mean, as movies speed up, that's just going to keep happening. It's going to be like, you know, something happens at Christmas, we're watching it in the summer.
I mean, you don't even necessarily have to be the best, just be the first, and you can kind of just shoehorn your way in and corner that part of the market, I guess.
If you think there are 900 screenwriters trying to write the fastest and best coronavirus script, right? The Dr. Fauci story, the whatever, the researchers, right? They're all knee deep in it, and it's going to happen. And it's going to be kind of like uncouth or kind of like icky for a lot of people because it's like, oh, like that happened like too soon, right? Too soon. That's the cliche. But and then a lot of people are going to go watch it and they'll make some money off it. And, you know, they'll encourage you to watch it like on demand and pretend like you're quarantining.
What I keep seeing all over social media lately is these remote love stories, people meeting each other on dating apps and kind of having social distance dates. And I'm thinking we're going to see a rise in a very particular type of rom-com that deal with kind of like, what was that with, was it Keanu and Sandra Bullock of The Lake House? Where they're like at parts in time.
Yeah, it's, well, like,
we're going to see stuff like that.
We were actually just talking about this, me and a friend, because Tom Hanks is like obviously doing the whole Tom Hanks thing because of the coronavirus. Like he was hosting SNL. I bet we're going to start seeing the like Meg Ryan, Tom Hanks rom-com, like that era of rom-coms start to get remade. We'll probably see a new Pretty Woman. We'll see a new You've Got Mail. And I was wondering like if they could do You've Got Mail on, like it would have to be like You've Got DMs or something like that.
Yeah.
But it actually kind of works out perfectly if they do it in a quarantine, right? they're separated and have to get to know each other by like messages, and it could be Tinder, it could be, I don't know, whatever the other apps are. I'm not in that game. But there could be some on-ramps into some 90s remakes, because this is kind of, take out Zoom and it's setting us back like 3 decades.
I mean, you're absolutely right. That's something that Hollywood is probably already on, honestly. They're all having, ironically, Zoom meetings to write these and make these scripts out. And with that brilliant segue, I lost where we were at. I think we were number 2. Yes, we were at number 2.
You're number 2.
So this is my number 2. This is one that it's a fictional story. It's a conglomerate of a lot of different stories. It's Goon, Last of the Enforcers. You've got, I kid you not.
This is Sean William Scott, right?
Yeah, this is Stifler. It's a comedy. It's a hockey comedy, but it's actually quite serious, because basically what happened is there's a book with that same title, Goon, Last of the Enforcers. And this author interviewed a bunch of the old great NHL enforcers about their regrets, what happened in their career, what they didn't like. And it actually paints like a very unpretty picture of being an enforcer. And basically the main character, Blad's goal is to no longer be an enforcer. He wants to make it to the NHL, and it like a legit hockey player. And it deals with that. And I think it's telling, but it also kind of tells the story of where hockey's evolved. Plus,
this was actually also made in, this is going to be the weirdest reference ever, so buckle up. This was also made into a play, and it toured, and at a previous stop in my career, I was in Ithaca, New York, and it came to like the Ithaca Theater. So I interviewed the author of the book and the person that, I don't know what you call it. What do you call it when you turn a book into a script, into a play, not a movie? It's like, like adapted it for theater or whatever. I don't know. But it's like a dark story in that the guy's like dealing with, kind of ahead of its time, dealing with the brain trauma that comes with pummeling people for a living, and addiction and family relationships, and all trying to kind of make it good. I to be honest, I've never seen the movie, and I didn't see the play either. But I interviewed the author, and that's like deep. When you see Sean William Scott and you see Stifler, right? That's his name, Sean William Scott. You think it's going to be like slapstick, like not slapshot, like slapstick. And it's going to be like goofy, and there's going to be locker room jokes, and there's going to be like, oh, we hazed the young guy jokes. But I mean, it's like a reflection on the sport of hockey.
Yeah, I absolutely. I think, honestly, it's quite telling. There's definitely, I think, because they cast Sean William Scott, they definitely lean a lot more towards fart jokes and kind of some of that sophomoric humor. But underneath it all, I think they did a really good job capturing the darkness that exists within people who are dealing with these repeated head injuries, night in, night out. They're going to fight. The sequel, also good, not as good, didn't make my list, but
I didn't even know there was a sequel.
Yeah, I can't remember it's called Goon 2, but I can't remember the rest of the tagline.
Goon 2, Electric Boogaloo?
Yeah. He ends up joining one of those, these are kind of like exhibition leagues where basically there's no hockey played, it's just fist fights on ice. And it's also got Liev Schreiber, and he's getting Sean William Scott's character, Blatt, into that arena, and it's just even darker than the first one.
Wait, is like that a real thing? Is that a real thing? Where
I mean,
there's box.
Yeah, not. I've never seen it here in the States. I know it happens in Canada because, well, anything with anyone on the ice, and it's former in that league, that exhibition. It's the players who are washed up, so they've seen these people when they were on the ice, main stage, giving people the business, and now they're watching them give each other the business, and it's real dark. It definitely took, like, I remember thinking, well, that wasn't nearly as fulfilling as the first one.
I mean, there has to be a market for that. Like there's a market for UFC, which is basically just like the world's most brutal sport. Put it on ice, and there might be a market there. If we get an iced octagon and call it Goon, I'm in.
That's what we're gonna do. That's gonna be our. I mean, we're gonna have to wait some time. We got time to plan it out.
All right, I'm in. I'll be an early investor of no money.
That's all. Hey, we can get those stimulus checks, and if you're not investing in yourself, you're using your check wrong.
Exactly. If you're paying off credit card debt, forget it.
So,
right, are we ready for number one? Number one, anyone that knows me knows where this is going. Of course, it's going to football. This is actually my first football, isn't it?
Yes.
I have basketball, I have boxing, I have baseball.
You had hockey?
I had hockey. Yeah, so this is my first football, which is surprising because I'm a football lifer. But you knew it was going to go there. It's some of the best speeches. True story, kind of. We can have that conversation if you'd like. It stars the guy who helps Frodo. I've never seen Lord of the Rings. I just know he's in it. Give me Rudy. Some people say it's corny. Some people say it's cheesy. I say it's perfect. I say he's 5'0" 100 and you got to practice for 2 years with the best players in the world. It's just fantastic. When he gets to run out onto the field and Rudy, tears.
So you built that up, and you get some of the best speeches. It's a true story. Hi, he's gone. Remember the Titans. And there you go. The guy who helped Frodo, and I was like, I do not remember Denzel being in Lord of the Rings.
Gary Bertier, he helped Frodo.
Frodo.
Julius Campbell. Remember the Titans? Like I said, we're gonna have to have like a minute or two where I can just list movies that should be on there. Sports genre of movies is heavy in my rotation. I actually just watched one last night that didn't make my group. But let's go back to Rudy. Well, let's get it in there. Let's talk about the great scenes in Rudy. The jersey scene where they give up the jerseys to get Rudy on the field. When he actually gets on the field, the scene where he's sitting on the bench and he opens up the acceptance letter to learn he got into Notre Dame, unbelievable. When he's talking with the priest, unbelievable. The scene where Pete dies, unbelievable. The last scene of high school, any player that has played high school or college and had a last practice knows what that's like. I could go any scene with the janitor, where the janitor lets him sleep on the cot and leaves him the key on the windowsill. It's all fantastic.
I'll give you Rudy. I will grant you Rudy. I won't argue with that.
This isn't a question of you giving me Rudy. I took Rudy because Rudy was there for the taking, and it's always going to be there. Rudy needs no one's approval, and he taught you that in Rudy. Only you need to care about yourself. You don't, even if you're 5'0" 100.
Rudy's a respectable choice. I kind of, your number one choice makes me feel really bad about my number one choice because yours is important. Yours has an impact.
It's not like if I would have went Remember the Titans or I went to like 42, the Jackie Robinson story, or if I went like this one is really just motivational. It's just like it makes you want to run through a brick wall, but I don't think it really.
Well, that's what I'm saying with Rudy. Everyone's seen it. It's inspirational. It's a hell of a story, and I went with Slapshot as my number one movie.
I was gonna say, let me write down what I think yours is, and I was gonna write down Slapshot.
It's easily my favorite sports movie. Do not see the sequels. If you ever have the opportunity, just say no to Slapshot 2 and 3 and drugs because they're milking what they perceive to be a cash cow. But Slapshot, you got Paul Newman, you got the Hanson brothers, you've got the sheriff from Twin Peaks whose name escapes me because of 3 things. And I particularly remember Paul Newman as Reggie Dunlop, player coach, just manipulating that team into trying to prevent them from being sold. And I feel like there are a lot of great sports movies that deal with that. You've got Major League. And I always love that concept for a story, but you put it on ice, you throw in 3 brothers who look almost identical and just beat the hell out of everybody.
Mop tops.
Give me that every day. I love Slapshot. Number one, for sure. I will forever show that to people. I think I showed that to Cindy pretty early on in our relationship, and she's not as big a Slapshot as me.
How long did it take you to get over that?
It was pretty immediate. She watches hockey with me, so it's okay. But does make me feel a little guilty when I want to turn on Slapshot because, like, yeah, you're not going to enjoy this. Just go somewhere for 2 hours.
Explain to everyone how you procured the Slapshot jersey and how often you wear it.
I procured the Slapshot jersey actually as a Christmas present from my dad. I've got.
There's a theme here for both of ours, right? The stuff that you can talk about with family, the stuff you talk about with your dad. Me and my grandpa used to watch Rudy all the time. Like, their sports movies have that kind of intergenerational.
My dad didn't turn on Rudy; he turned on Slapshot, and he's probably responsible for a lot of my personality traits. But yeah, it was a Christmas present one year, and it gets worn usually before opening night of the hockey season. There's a week of jerseys, and Slapshot's usually the first day, and then I kind of just put it up because I got the white jersey instead of the blue one, and I don't, how much coffee I drink. That's just a disaster. White jersey.
It was in the back of your car for a long time, though. Every time I walked out, I would see it.
It gets that ceremonial wear. So now we need to hit your honorable mentions.
I was going to say, so that's like, obviously this is a quarantine released podcast. That's 10 movies that everyone can watch. And I feel like no one right now is against getting more content ideas. Like, everyone's passing shows back and forth. Everyone's trading passwords for Netflix and Hulu and Apple TV and all that nonsense. So I'm going to throw some names out here. You give me your reaction. Hoosiers, I think we didn't talk about enough.
Hoosiers almost made my list.
I think it's like so solid. I think it's so solid that it almost can't be top 5. It's like they didn't swing for the fences all the way. They were just like trying to hit a double, and they did. But it's not a home run, but it's a solid double. But I think Hoosiers deserve to mention. I watched this over the last 2 nights. Miracle.
I was hard pressed to not put Miracle in my top 5. Kurt Russell, Herb Brooks. Oh man.
Second best movie speech for a pump up speech is the one where he's like, "We're tonight, gentlemen, we're the best hockey team on the face of the earth." Like, that is number 2 of all time. If you don't run through a wall on that one, you're crazy.
Can we also talk about how awesome that's a movie where the whole buildup of the movie and the pinnacle of the movie isn't even the gold medal game?
I actually think
it's an interesting chapter of history.
I think it's interesting as a movie because it's probably, especially in this country where I assume it made most of its money, one of the most known outcomes ever. And I still am like, are they going to win at the end of the movie? I'm like they're pretty overrun by the Russians. And then, of course, they end up pulling it off. And every time I'm like, yeah, right? It's like watching the Titanic. It's like, it would be like watching the Titanic if the climax wasn't like interpersonal between Jack and Rose. If it was actually just like, I don't know, is the boat going to sink? Like, we all knew what was going to happen.
Iceberg?
Yeah. It's like we all knew what was going to happen there. So anyway, Miracle gets one. Remember the Titans we already talked about, but that needed to get mentioned. Major League we already talked about, but that needed to get mentioned. Bull Durham, are you a Bull Durham guy?
Oh yeah, I love Bull Durham.
Bull Durham to me gets the
grind in the summer, like before. Dad and I would be doing laundry in the morning before, Sunday day game. We'd be getting the chores done. Dad would just throw on Bull Durham. That was always playing in the background.
Yeah, it's. I feel like it gets the grind of like minor league sports better than anything. We could just go Costner for a second here. Go Tin Cup, fantastic. For Love of the Game, fantastic. Draft Day, fantastic. There's one that I'm missing with Costner, and it's going to annoy the heck out of me. It'll come to me. Dodgeball. Are you a Dodgeball fan? Oh, geez.
I'm a Bond fan.
Sorry. Pause. I just talked about Costner sports movies and didn't mention Field of Dreams.
That would have been a major crime.
I listed Tin Cup and didn't mention Field of Dreams. That's an omission.
Field of Dreams is good, but Tin Cup, let me tell you.
Don't hate on Tin Cup, but it's not quite as, speaking of fathers and sons and everything that goes, I mean, Field of Dreams, that probably should have been on someone's top 5. We may have missed that one. All right, now we can go back to, you were talking about Dodgeball.
I mean, I'm a huge Vince Vaughn fan, so I mean, I don't think I've seen anything with Vaughn in it that I've been like, yeah, that sucks. I love Dodgeball. I don't know if is Dodgeball a real enough sport?
Ooh, we could have that debate. I heard someone the other day list Forrest Gump as a sports movie. I don't believe in that.
No, definitely not a sport. I mean, it's such a minute portion of it.
I mean, he plays at Alabama, but I'm a no-go. So you're saying Dodgeball isn't a sports movie?
It's a children's game. I mean, the whole thing is the shtick of it. Like, you have to throw a real athlete in there, so you get Lance Armstrong before he gets disgraced for cheating. I mean, Dodgeball's a great movie, but there's not a professional league. I mean, there is a professional league, but let's be real here. These players aren't getting endorsements and able to pay their bills playing Dodgeball.
For years, I wore a Live Strong bracelet. So don't you go hating on the people that were fooled by Lance Armstrong. I love those things. Can we go to serious boxing movies for a second? We have Raging Bull, The Fighter, $1 Million Baby, Cinderella Man. Any of those stand out to you?
I like $1 Million Baby a lot and Cinderella Man.
Cinderella Man is one of my.
If we're gonna do that, and I know I've had this conversation with you before. The Wrestler, one of Mickey Rourke's finest performances. Technically not a real sport, but Mickey Rourke, I really felt like he as an actor was putting his life on the line in the movie.
Yeah, I mean, yes, the vibe he was supposed to give off, he like embodied extremely well. So give him credit. But I mean, if you're not giving Dodgeball, I can't give The Wrestler.
All right. Then The Wrestler.
I do like The Fighter, though. I do like The Fighter as well. We breezed over that one. Christian Bale had one of his, I feel like he does it every couple of years, where he's like, I'm going to lose 60 pounds and look like a crack addict and play a crack addict. So give The Fighter
Sometimes
some
I wonder if they're actually asking him to do it.
He just shows
60 pounds. No one asked why.
Did anyone tell you to do that? No. Honey buns. I ate all of them. All right. I'm just going to keep running through these because I'm having a good time. I know we both are a fan of this. When I hosted the Tim Donnelly Show, which you alluded to earlier, in the studio, I had a Toon Squad jersey. Space Jam.
So I wanted to make sure I had basketball somewhere in my top 5, and then I ended up ignoring basketball, but I want you to know Space Jam was going to be my choice.
I have a Sylvester the Cat jersey on the Toon Squad. Underrated, glue guy off the bench. Really, puts in his effort around Bugs and Michael and the higher profile names. I'm a big Space Jam fan. I need to get a Monsters and I can hang them up side by side. That's my next move. Staying in basketball, Coach Carter, he got game. Blue Chips, couple ones there. I know you probably got to bounce, but I could talk about these all day. Any Given Sunday, Willie Beeman.
That's a classic.
One of the first ahead of its time. Like, you know what's fun about Any Given Sunday, and also off of your selection, Varsity Blues? Both of them are movies from like late 90s, early 2000s. And that's when the NFL was very much like big, tall, rocket-armed passers, hand the ball off up the middle. There was Emmitt Smith. There was Dan Marino, Troy Aikman, right? All the big, strong guys. And Any Given Sunday and Varsity Blues at the end when they go no huddle are very much like, we're going to be crazy radical, and it's going to be the big twist in the movie when we start running 5 wide and have a mobile quarterback. And it's like, that's what football has done. It took 20 years for offensive football to catch up to Any Given Sunday and Varsity Blues, the movies where the quarterback has a rap album and the girl does the whipped cream bikini. Those were the real innovators.
Well, you know what my theory is? Those movies kind of coincide with the beginning of Netflix. You remember how Netflix DVD rentals, you had to put them in a queue? Those were lower down on the queue, and the people in charge finally got to them.
Finally got them sent. I hope there's someone. Does Netflix still do that? Do they still do the subscription service?
They do. I mean, I don't know if they're still doing it during all of this with the shipping risk, but I do know it's still a service that's available. And sometimes, I mean, they get some fairly good stuff. Occasionally, you have a free trial offer, so I'll take it and use it for a month, and it's like, okay, yeah, but this really isn't worth paying for because you have to put the DVD in, and it's a whole big hassle. And then we only have one TV with a DVD player, and that's I can't just park on my living room couch for 2 hours. Like maybe I want to go upstairs.
I hope there's someone still like waiting for a DVD in the mail to pop it in, watch it, mail it back, wait for their next one. There's something. It's like going to Blockbuster. You can't do that anymore. I hope you can. I hope you can order.
There's gotta be. I think there's still a Blockbuster store open in Portland, Oregon.
Yes, there is. Actually, I don't know if it's in Portland. I think it's in Bend, which I don't know how far that is. But I do know someone that lives in Portland that took like the pilgrimage to Bend to go see a Blockbuster. And they were like, it was my wife's friend. They were Snapchatting like videos and stuff from the inside. It was like going back in time. It was crazy. They like, were waiting in line with their rentals, and they had the candy and popcorn right there, and they had the new releases. It was the bright cafeteria lights overhead. It was crazy.
Part of me wants to I miss Blockbuster, but I feel like by saying that also makes me a hypocrite because I was all on the bandwagon for Netflix and streaming services. So I feel partially responsible for killing Blockbuster, but there's definitely that nostalgia factor there.
I would, if there was a Blockbuster down the street, I would go every weekend. If they had like movies that were were a week before they came out on demand. Like, if they were the same ones I get at my house, I probably wouldn't go. But if it was even a day before, I'd be there. I also was big on video games from Blockbuster.
Yeah, so the thing with Blockbuster is they had video games. You could rent the consoles, and you get all the snacks you need. They had just your classic movie theater snacks right up front ready for you. And they were never as expensive as they were at the movie theater because, hell, you're paying for that Blockbuster subscription. We don't have to mark it up.
I also loved, one of the first cards I had was a Blockbuster card. Like my parents put also on their account was my name when I was a kid. So it was like I could go into Blockbuster and I could get a movie without my parents coming with me. They could, sit in the car and whatever I got counted. Me and my brother each got to get one. See, it's wholesome stuff. Can we curse on this, by the way?
Yeah.
It's wholesome shit. You know what I mean?
That's your one usage of shit.
That's I don't want to.
Otherwise, we're gonna jump from PG-13 to R.
Jerry Maguire. Are you a Jerry Maguire fan? I only have a couple more.
I'm a Tom Cruise fan. I don't know how you feel. Sure, in his personal life he's nuts, but I'm particularly good at separating crazy people from their character.
Art from artists. I am probably like Tom Cruise, maybe Jerry Maguire and earlier. I like Cocktail. I like Risky Business. I like Top Gun. I like Jerry Maguire. I don't need Mission Impossible 12 and a half. Need Night and Day with Cameron Diaz. I don't need any of that stuff. But early Tom Cruise, I mean, he was on a heater. What was that?
Have you seen Days of Thunder?
Yeah, that's the race car one.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's another old one that I like.
He's so reckless on the track, and my dad still to this day, if we're playing, like sometimes we'll go up and we'll just break out. Let's break out the old PlayStation. We'll play NASCAR 2000. And Dad always likes to pretend that he's the crew chief, and all he'll say is hit the pace car. That we're not even in a caution. There's no pace car.
Hey, I mean, a good movie quote between father and son, nothing better.
This is true.
Nothing better. Loving basketball. You're a loving basketball fan. I was a big fan growing up. It's waned on me just enough to get it out of my top 5.
I haven't seen Loving Basketball.
Okay, you should. It's a good one. And that's a recommendation for everyone. This is my last one. Are we ready? Because Absolutely. This is a sport that deserves to be recognized on this sports movie podcast. Cool Runnings, bobsled, John Candy, Wolf Blitzer.
I remember practicing in the bathtub. Cool Runnings really does need love. I did not put it on my list because I was for sure that's not a sport.
Feel the rhythm.
All the work. But my God.
Feel the ride. Get on up. It's bobsled time. It's a great movie. Fantastic.
That was a classic. When we had the Disney Channel, that would show every once in a while. And that's when I remember, definitely, Cool Runnings is coming on. Oh, yeah. I know what I'm doing on this Friday night.
And actually, I'll give you this one. All of these other movies that I've mentioned, I recommend watching them. If you haven't seen them or you haven't seen them in a while, go watch them. Cool Runnings, if you watched it as a kid and you loved it like I do, don't watch it as an adult. And there's an element of this in Mighty Ducks, and I've told you about this, but Mighty Ducks is so good, I think it holds up. It's a little cheesy. Like the Mighty Ducks example is, when you watch it as a kid, you don't notice it. When you watch it as an adult, every slap shot, like off screen, someone yells like, "Way to go, Charlie!" And it's like, you didn't need that, right? Cool Runnings, there's a bit of like, they're too on the nose, so kids will like understand what's going on. They're like, "Oh, were they mean to you? Well, you have to stand up for yourself." When in actuality, like, just actions could show that, but it's like a kid's movie kind of. So if you've never seen it, you have to watch it. If you watched it as a kid and you love it, just use this podcast to bring up good memories and think about it, but don't watch it. You can kill 10 minutes of quarantine just reliving John Candy.
I can tell you, if Cool Runnings, if you haven't seen it, it is on Disney's streaming service because, well, they frankly just put everything on there. Actually, speaking of rewatching things that don't hold up, I went back. The first thing I watched on Disney Plus was the Mighty Ducks cartoon series.
Aren't they in space?
No, they're from space, but they're here on Earth.
Okay.
And they're crime-fighting ducks, and it's weird, and it doesn't hold up. And I remember being all jazzed, and I realized what it is as an adult. I was just so in love with that logo.
You still have it on your wall.
Yeah, the story was completely irrelevant. It was just the logo for me. Like, this is really cool artwork. And I realized that now as an adult. Scooby-Doo actually holds up.
Oh, I thought you were saying Scooby-Doo is a sports movie. You're just saying cartoons that hold up? Yeah. Scoobs is the man.
Yeah, we've watched a lot of Scooby-Doo on this quarantine. And
really?
That's what we've been watching. Scooby-Doo finally got around to seeing Bad Boys for Life.
Fantastic. Kind of weird with the witch, but fantastic.
I liked it a lot. I was a big fan. I think if I were to rank the Bad Boys, I'd probably go 1, 3, 2 in order.
No, 2 is number 1. Then it goes Bad Boys 2 is first. Bad Boys, the original, is second, and then Bad Boys for Life is third. But it didn't get blown out as much as it could have.
Well, I don't like that. That's the other thing is I think it's a very narrow race for me. I don't think any of them are that much better. I think they all are very solid. It's one of those few scenarios where like none of the sequels let me down by any imagination. One
of the last things I did before this whole quarantine broke the way it did, and we had to like start staying inside, was one of the last trips I went on was to see Martin Lawrence live.
That's right. How good was
Martin is Martin. Marty Marr, baby. He ran the hits back, right? Did some Martin stuff. But then, it's just like, occasionally there's a character where it's like, Ryan Reynolds with Deadpool. It's like, of course, that's the guy. Like, it has to be him. Both Martin Lawrence and Will Smith are that way with their Bad Boys characters because like they're just so perfect. He was there. It was like having Marcus from Bad Boys like host a stand-up comedy night. It was perfect. Yeah, they're both very natural and they played really well off each other in that franchise. I don't know if there's another one in the chamber for them, but Bad Boys, they do some running on the beach. Is it a sports movie? Bad Boys for Life, they actually race. And Bad Boys 2, you got Marcus wearing a Michael Vick jersey. Exactly. Sports movie. I should put it in my top 5. That could be number 1, 2, and 3. It's true. Actually, they're below Rudy. Who am I kidding? 2, 3, and 4. You can make the argument. We've sat there and tried to spin it all the time, but you can make an argument for each of them because there is a lot of running and there's a very clear goal. There's a sense of team. A lot of like unbuttoned, button-down shirts running in slow motion towards like a bomb. Here's what we'll do to decide. So, is Capture the Flag a sport? I'm gonna say yes, just because I want Bad Boys to be a sports movie, but in like my heart of hearts, I don't believe it to be true. Well, we tried. I do have a wicked scar on my shin from playing Capture the Flag growing up. So I'd like to say I didn't get hurt playing not a sport.
It's true. We're gonna have to establish some guidelines and revisit. Thank you for joining me. Thank you for finally doing this.
Of course.
Had a good time. Tell them where they can find you online.
You can find us, search for the Nick Cattle Show just about everywhere podcasts can be found. On Twitter at Donnelly Sports. I'm guessing if you go into the archives on WRADradio.com, you can find Movie Night. You can find the Tim Donnelly Show from way back. I'd recommend Movie Night because it probably stands up over time better than the topical stuff we were talking on the Tim Donnelly Show. But check it out. Follow me on Twitter at Donnelly Sports.
Thank you, Tim. We'll have to do this again.
Of course. Tell everyone I said hi.